What's good, guys? My name's Daniel. Welcome back to my channel. I have a quick riddle for you. Why did the bike fall over? It was too tired. So, on my last video, I briefly went over my diagnosis of psoriatic arthritis, psoriasis, and kind of my medical history. Did a brief summary of that. Today, we're going to do something a little different. At the end of my last video, I mentioned I was going to be starting a new medication specifically designed for psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis. That medication is called Otezla, and I have the starter pack right here. So I'm going to briefly explain what the starter pack is and what it involves. And then I'm going to talk about kind of any side effects I might have had in the first couple weeks and the research I did around it and what kind of convinced me to go the route of taking this medication. So at the beginning here, you could see they start you on a very minimal dose of 10 milligrams per day, working up to 10 milligrams twice a day, titrating again from 10 to 20, 20, 20, etc., up until we get to the recommended dose of 30 milligrams per day. The reason that they seem to want to do the titration in this manner is to kind of minimize the potential side effects of the drug. Some common side effects listed on the label include things like nausea, diarrhea, and some other more serious side effects such as increased risk of depression and suicidal thoughts and things like that. So just to be safe, they try to kind of build slowly with people, and they seem to have a lot more efficacy doing it in this manner instead of starting off kind of full throttle. So it's a 2-week long dosage of just building to the 30 milligrams twice a day, as I mentioned. In that first couple weeks, I would say for me personally, things were mainly smooth sailing. I didn't really have any major side effects. I will say on the first day of the second week, which is actually the first day they give you the 30-30 dose, which is the full recommended dose, I did notice some nausea after the morning time dose, which lasted for roughly maybe an hour to an hour and a half. I did eat some fruit and additional fruit that morning after I took it, because I always take Otezla after eating, which it says on the box you could take it either before or after, so I figured might as well do it on a full stomach. Seems to work pretty well for me so far. I noticed some nausea that first day of the second week, but it seemed to dissipate pretty quickly, thankfully, so it wasn't too rough in that arena. The only other side effect I would say I noticed is it made me feel a little bit like I don't want to say like full blown like sick, like flu-like, but it made me feel kind of like I had maybe like a common cold, like a little run down slightly. That was the worst type of side effect for me personally, but it seems to be getting better over time, and obviously I'll be updating more and more as time goes on. So why did I choose Otezla? Well, I decided to work with my doctor, obviously, and evaluate the safety profile of Otezla along with its alternatives. And even though the potential side effects that I mentioned might seem detrimental in comparison to alternatives such as the chemotherapy drug, methotrexate, that I mentioned in my previous video, or the biologics of the world, many of which side effects result in death. I'm not going to start name dropping and so forth, but you've seen the commercials, I'm assuming, of some of these medications used to treat arthritis and inflammatory conditions. I decided that Otezla was a more safe bet for me personally, not to mention the fact that it's one of the only medications specifically designed for psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis. So that in itself made me feel better. It's actually the first, I've been diagnosed for 5 years now with PSA, and it's the first treatment I'm trying specifically designed for PSA, believe it or not. So yeah, that's where we're at. So beyond that, I obviously did some homework. I did some independent research, and I'll include some of the medical literature I pulled up kind of supporting use of Otezla and how it seems to hit six key domains that are associated with psoriatic diagnosis, which are peripheral arthritis, axial arthritis, dactylitis, enthesitis, skin manifestation, and nail psoriasis. So those kind of 6 clinical domains together or in different various groups are what usually results in the diagnosis of psoriatic arthritis. And the method of the trials done with Otezla were to kind of treat to target or minimize as much as possible across all 6 of those domains, which I thought was a pretty clever way to lay out the study, and quite a different way than a lot of previous studies had been done for psoriatic arthritis. So I really liked that fact. Their cohort of the population study was, involved hundreds and hundreds of people, and it showed efficacy rates of between 20 to 40% decrease in disease activity after about 3 to 4 months. And honestly, for some of the people in the trial that continued on Otezla, it didn't stop. What I found interesting about this medication, it didn't kind of help people and stop. The longer people who had success stayed on it, it seemed to slowly improve them further and further over time, to the point that many of them found complete resolution of symptoms of PSA. And having said that, now before starting this medication, I reached out to some people that I knew for a fact had taken or were on Otezla, and their stories to me were pretty fantastic. One of them specifically told me that the first few weeks were a bit rough. They had some nausea and other side effects and things like that. But after about 4 or 5 months, they were completely asymptomatic. They couldn't even tell they had a condition anymore. So when I heard that, I was like, okay, well, I'm pretty close to feeling normal at times, but I can't do all the activities and sports that I used to do. I might as well give this thing a shot. The pricing is a bit high on it, in my opinion, but that is most of the drugs, unfortunately, that you're going to encounter with these type of inflammatory conditions. These level of drugs are priced quite highly still, unfortunately. I think the insurance, luckily for me, my insurance covered roughly 80 to 90% of the payment, but I was told it was in the range of $1,600 to $1,800 monthly for this treatment, just to give you a ballpark. And I know for a lot of people, insurance coverage and so forth can be a barrier to entry, unfortunately. Yeah, so back to my first 2 weeks experience. I actually I've made and am continuing to add to an ongoing chart tracking my kind of symptoms across those 6 domains that we talked about. I'm probably going to eventually do a separate video on those domains because there's so much to say about them. But anyway, yeah, so as you can see on the chart, I had a very slight decrease in kind of the skin manifestation / psoriasis, and a very slight decrease in pain caused from kind of enthesitis, which by the way refers mostly to kind of tendon pain. It's where entheses are where your ligaments attach to bone at the very ends there, and it kind of manifests in a similar kind of pain state as tendonitis. After week 1, I definitely noticed some improvement, but I don't want to say it was a day and night improvement. It was just subtle. It's early days for this treatment for me. I am going to keep everyone updated on how it goes, and yeah, got great hopes for this thing. Another key thing that I forgot to mention about Otezla is that clinical studies, smaller studies, have shown that it is effective as well in treating atopic dermatitis. If you watch my previous video, you'll know that I'm also diagnosed with this separately, and there's been a lot of confusion as to whether or not it's psoriasis, atopic dermatitis, and to be honest with you, since many of the treatments are the same, it really hasn't mattered. But conveniently, Otezla has also shown to be effective in that area as well. So I'll include the clinical trial I found or study I found in the description for this video as well, alongside other scientific articles. But yeah, so my plan over the next few weeks is to keep posting updates every couple weeks on how it's going with Otezla. I'll try to be as open and honest about the side effects as possible. you know, a key thing with this is I feel like a lot of people are scared of this medication because of a lot of commenting online and so forth, but I'm just going to try to be as unbiased as possible when it comes to this medication. And speaking of unbiased, I just want to mention again that I'm in no way sponsored by this company. There is no affiliation between me and the makers of Otezla. This is an independent review and completely a quick, call it a brief description of my experience with this drug. So yeah, hope to see you guys again soon, and don't forget to hit subscribe, that like button, share. It's always appreciated.